Good evening, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to Cambodia Global Dialogue of Southeast Asia TV. Tonight we will be discussing something that is quite down on the ground. As you know, in the past previous show, I have engaged many speakers in many topics that are so macro, so far out there in terms of theory, in terms of the world, in terms of regionalization, globalization, WTO, all that things, and sometimes one wonder, but what's happening on the ground? So to me, today we'll be still talking about trade, but trade as it impacts poverty reduction. You know, being a trade negotiator myself, I find that sometimes we, the theoretician, we the negotiator, we the minister, we the Geneva, the New York-based academician, we talk a lot about poverty reduction, but sometimes we wonder how does it work at the field level. And today we have the pleasure to have a person, a practitioner who's been working in the area of trade at such a micro level, but it does have such a high impact on poverty reduction. So we have today a good friend of mine that I've known for a long time, Jane Ritskes. Jane, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Jane, you are now the founder, you are the founder and the director of Tabita, which is an NGO working with women producing craft, exporting. But don't let me describe that. I think I want you to speak in your own word. But before you describe Tabita, tell the audience a bit, you know, how long you've been in Cambodia, what you're doing, you know, a bit about your background.
Actually, I first heard about Cambodia during the Vietnam War.
Wow.
It was I'm a Vietnam kid, grew up in that era, a young person then, and actually knew about the genocide in Cambodia and thought I should have done something then, but didn't. I had opportunity to come in 1992 with an international NGO, and things were a bit rough here then.
92?
In 92.
Before the Paris Peace Accord?
Yeah, and it was very different then, and very difficult in some ways. And a lot of the people that were here at that time were people that kind of live on the edge. They like to come into a country when things are a bit rough. And
you're one of them?
No, actually, I had a love from Cambodia since 1975 when I first heard about the genocide. And very guilty, felt always very guilty about not doing something then. So when the opportunity came, I took it. But the focus then was primarily on who was killing who and who was fighting who, rather than on the people of Cambodia. And I believe we wasted a bit of money, and rather than criticize, decided I should take out my savings, cash in my pension, and July of 94 came back to Cambodia and started Tabitha in October of 94.
Wow. Tabita?
Yeah.
What is Tabita and what are you doing?
Well, Tabitha is an NGO, and we're in currently 13 different provinces.
Wow.
We focus on community development. Savings is our primary focus, so we gain the trust of people. But it's also a great way of turning around the attitude of poverty. People have, poverty is a large part, I would say, attitude, where they give up. And they despair, can't think anymore. Savings, because it's their money, they actually have to make a choice for themselves. So often when we start, they'll actually ask us things like, is it all right if I save to buy a towel? Because they really don't have anything. And our answer is consistently, we don't know. Are you worth a towel? And that often results in tears and anger. And many of the people that we work with will cry for 4 or 5 days because it's the first time they'll tell us that anyone has asked them, or you know, normally people tell them who they are, what they should be doing. We leave them every day we come back. They come to a point where they say, yeah, I'm worth a towel, and that's when the saving starts. In conjunction with that, we do a lot of work with water. We install a lot of wells and ponds. and they have to earn income. If they don't earn income, we'll actually pull the well back out. If they got large tracts of land, say a hectare, 2 hectares, half hectare, they have to grow vegetables and rice.
Okay.
So that changes things very quickly. If they have smaller land, we expect pigs and chickens and maybe a small fish pond. And then house building, we have a lot of volunteers come from all over the world to build houses for a number of our families. And then cottage industry is specifically geared at administrative support for the program itself, but it involves the skill of Cambodian women.
Jane, you see, I've been with the Ministry of Commerce for 6 years, and on trade, you know, I went to Geneva. I work for the International Trade Center, where our program, as a UN WTO agency, we focus quite a bit on poverty reduction, you know, and from a Geneva base, right? No different than the World Bank from Washington, the UN from New York. We talk a lot about poverty reduction and trade, right? But you know, it's not easy to get the poor to trade because the threshold of production is so minimal.
Right.
And it's very difficult to jump into the next phase. Trade means you have to be in position to produce, you know, and the fact that you produce, it doesn't mean anything because if what you produce is not market worthy. And to be market worthy, there are a certain minimum requirement in terms of product, in terms of design, in terms of quality, in terms of consistency. And then after that, you need money, you need finance, you know, to put something together. But what I always say that, look, many times it's a lot to do about market. You have to have market first, then you produce for the market. You don't produce and then look for market. You identify the market and then you work backward. Knowing you all this year and the success of Tabitha, you have spot that. You have spot that without a solid market, you will not be able to work backward. Tell me more about your market and how you've been able to link your lady, your disadvantaged lady who managed to learn a skill, to develop a handicraft, and how you can take that product in a local village and find its way to Montreal or to Japan or whatever.
I think one of the first things I do in a country when I come to a place like Cambodia and we do cottage industry, you basically look at what skill is here, what skill is inherent to the country. And one of those skills is silk. And Cambodians actually haven't learned to cheat yet. So their silk is actually very good. We've had it tested several times against other countries, and Cambodian silk is excellent.
What do you mean they haven't learned how to cheat?
Well, in many of the silks you buy now from different countries, you'll find that there's nylon.
Oh, you're kidding?
No.
Oh,
no. And that's what makes it cheaper as well. And with mechanization, you can add certain things. Whereas in Cambodia, it's still a home skill, and it's done under houses, and it's part of their social fabric, it's part of their cultural fabric. What I do is take a skill like that. Now, when I first came, a lot of it was just traditional pattern silk, ikat and whatnot, and that's very nice, but that doesn't sell in the world. There's a few people who will buy traditional designs. But one of the very first things we did is separate the colors, and so because the colors are very, very stunning, and and that was very difficult to do because people are very caught up in tradition, and this is the way we used to do it, and a lot of the people that remember also were grandparents, survivors. And picking up that skill again, there wasn't very many silk weavers in Takao when we started, and so then we, just weave me materials. Again, for Cambodians, initially they saw, and I suspect still do, see Cambodian silk as part of their cultural norm, which it is. But it's also a resource. And if you take that resource, that skill, and you change it to meet the Western world, then you're going to have a market.
Yes.
So you put the two together. So dividing the colors up, now we have 140 colors.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very, very nice. And yeah, it's been very exciting. And then create like household furnishings. Silk worldwide is highly respected. And Cambodian silk is becoming more and more known. But making household furnishings that really, really are quite stunning.
And then you are marketing in, you know, Western country, rich country like
Canada. We have our base is volunteers in Canada, the United States, Australia, Singapore.
Okay.
Singapore is probably our biggest market in terms of testing the market.
Is that right?
And they have a silk fair for us twice every 6 months.
Every 6 months, yes.
And in the past, we've been able to rent like a furniture, or they donated a furniture store, and then we'll make the bedding and all the accessories to go with that. We also have all the international schools that are involved with the selling and promoting of the products.
I see.
And that's been very, very good for us because I can design a product, or one of my staff can design a product. We can think it's really good, but you send it to Singapore and they'll tell us pretty quickly. And again, Singapore is multicultural, and so the international community is so broad-based that we actually can develop products that would cross lines. So that would be acceptable in an Asian culture as well as an American culture.
Interesting.
And that's really good fun.
So in a way, you on one side you help develop the skill first, the mechanical motor skill.
They know that. We're not a training center. And that's very important. It's a business.
It's a business.
We use business principles.
Okay.
So people have to have skills.
Yes.
What we do is actually work with them to make those skills valuable. Okay. So we add value to what they're doing.
Market-driven parameter to help shape, orient a bit their skill. How they employ their skill.
And it's also training the market, and you have something valuable. You know, I think when you work in a country like Cambodia, unfortunately, a lot of people say there's nothing good here. You know, it's only if it's made in the America or Japan or something, then it's good. The truth of the matter is that Cambodia actually has wonderful products and wonderful skills that are actually quite valuable in the international community, but we don't know how to translate that to people.
And how do you translate it, speaking of translation?
Well, I think a lot of it's education. I invite a lot of people to come to Cambodia. You know, we can talk a lot. And what we do is I ask them to come, and they get to see the women that make it. They get to learn about the silk process. They get to learn about the lifestyle of the poor. We don't want pity. We like respect.
That's a good word.
And I demand that on both sides. And so people come and they actually, it's like a discovery. It's excitement for them.
So it's a lot of experience sharing on both sides. In that sense. So speaking of organizing the market, the production, to me, if I talk about trade and poverty reduction, there have to be some intermediary link, which I think what you're doing now is that sort of intermediary link, in the sense that trade demands certain critical mass, trade demands certain quality standard, and then on this side you've been able to harness the local skill that's been that they have for hundreds of years, past generation after generation, still weaving, but you sort of bring the experience of the Western world market, how they would like to buy certain product to meet their taste, and then you sort of make a fusion of the two, and then you help organize the production to link to the market. Is that, am I describing a bit?
Yeah, you know, kind of. I think we've always produced before we sold.
Is that right?
But I think I'm
But you must have a minimum
I have a
market
pretty
test
good
now.
idea
Okay.
of what people, what Westerners or international
Yes.
people like. Because I've been in the business world for a long time,
Yes.
so I have a very
Yes.
good idea. I don't want to sell out of pity.
Yes.
I don't want to have people come and say, oh, the poor Cambodians, and now we're going to buy, because they'll only buy once, and pity always turns into disgust.
Yes.
So the bottom line for me is, number one, teaching Cambodians respect for their own skills, understanding that they have a skill very few people in the world have,
Yes.
And that skill is valuable.
Okay.
And they make beautiful products. It's Cambodian silk is very, very beautiful. And then educating outsiders.
Yes.
Okay? Number one, these aren't poor people. You know, people come in and right away the cameras come out and we're going to take pictures of the poor.
Yeah.
No, this is a person like you and I, a person who has desires and needs, and so we make it personal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when they begin to understand and see the people as personal, and then begin to understand the amount of work and skill it requires, foreign people can't do this. This is a skill none of us have.
Wow.
And none of us probably could learn.
Yes.
To the extent it's done here. And the pride Cambodians take, the women that produce it, the men that produce it, they take a lot of pride in it. And that really makes it very valuable. But also recognizing that in the international community, ethnic designs, that appeals to a very few people.
I see.
But the vast majority of the population,
yes,
you have to make it something that they're comfortable with.
Yes.
But
so it's a balancing test, because nonetheless, the ethnicity is also something that needs to be preserved. It's sort of cultural heritage, right? But a balance between cultural heritage preservation versus, you know, a sort of like a mutation to something that will command some market respect.
Yes.
In that sense, so it's quite creative. I mean, you're talking about I call this a creative industry in its own right.
Yes, it is.
It is a creative industry. And I think in the world over now, even the UN, you know, themselves, they come to term that this creative industry have tremendous potential for poverty reduction, while at the same time preserving cultural knowledge, traditional knowledge. But to me, you know, what you say is so true, that cultural knowledge can only go so far, because cultural knowledge imply a locality, a certain constraint, physical, geographical constraint. And in the world of market, you're talking about critical mass. So how do you bridge that critical geographical constraint to a larger critical mass without sacrificing, you know, your cultural identity?
I think Tabitha is very, very careful that we don't take orders that, you know, like we've had a lot of offers. People come and say, look, we'll mechanize silk weaving, put up a factory. And that's all right, I guess. But once we do that, the poor people, who are the ones that can produce these goods, will lose right away, immediately. And the skill will be lost. So we only take orders that we can fill. So somebody says, you know, I'll order 500,000 pieces and I need it in 3 months. We just say no. That would destroy.
So it is a sort of corporate ethics that you're sticking to.
But that's because we're an NGO and not a business. If I was a business, I would have probably self-destructed quite a while ago.
I see. Because the market wouldn't bear that.
Well, what you do is, you know, Cambodia has, it's like Angkor Wat. It's trying to tell people, hey, let's mechanize Angkor Wat. We can come up with a little factory and produce all little Angkor Wats, and that would take away the special,
the uniqueness,
and the value,
this mythical thing behind it.
And Cambodian silk for me is that way. Number two, it is only done by the poor. The rich don't touch this stuff. I think for me, what is probably the most disappointing is that the rich don't buy Cambodian silk. You know, somebody builds a home, and the first thing they do is run to Singapore, they run to Thailand, and they buy all the furnishings, and that's all right.
Yes.
Which is comical because we go to Singapore and all the international people buy their silk furnishings. Yes. So we have quite a few homes around the world who are really, you know, the bed covers are Cambodian silk, the drapes are Cambodian silk, the cushions are. Yeah. It's really quite fascinating.
Well, that's the beauty of a globalization, this cross-cultural exchange, this the so-called, I hate to say that, you know, the grass on the other side is always green. Yeah. So we want something that we don't have, somebody wants something that we have. But I have to say one thing. I've been to many nice hotels in Siem Reap, you know, and I see the last several years the shift in terms of design, where we used to be quite excited to go to a modern hotel. Right. But now there's last several years you see a shift of this taste, going back to more something traditional, more something Cambodian, more something subdued, but class. Yes. And this is where the silk, this is where our fine wood, our fine little touch bring, and behind that there's the art. There's the sculpture, there's the Apsara, there's the bust of Jayavarman VII that sort of like settles in the Cambodian cultural context in place. So in a way, Cambodia is maturing. Yeah. You know, you see a way from nothingness in the 80s to a big bang brought by the UN with this infusion of massive UN money, dollar everywhere. So people sort of a little bit lost and a little bit in this monetary inflow, you know. So we went to get so imitate many architecture that is not Cambodian. That's right. But you can start seeing now many of the building that was built in the 90s start some facelifting to go back to something more Cambodian. So I think Cambodian culture, we're going through a very interesting mutation, you know. Yeah. It's sort of like a self-discovery a bit, you know. Yeah. And I think the silk has always been that common denominator that tie us down a bit to our own culture.
I think, you know, when I started doing cottage industry, it was quite an experience, because I would say, what do you have as a resource? And, you know, Cambodian silk. And the very first time we went to the market, we walked into the market and we saw the skirts. They call them the kabans, eh? And I said, oh, okay, I'd like a kaban, and I'm going to make a product out of it. The reaction of the staff was, you can't do that. It's a skirt. It's a piece. It's meant for, you know, a wedding or whatever. I said, yes, that's true, but it's also a resource. You can make things that you can also change things. And that disbelief. And then, you know, the first product we made was a Christmas stocking. You know, we came, 94, there was no Christmas in Cambodia, and but there's a lot of foreigners who wanted to celebrate Christmas. So we made a Christmas stocking. It was things like this, Siphana. It was really, the girls would say to me, you know, we can't cut. I said, I said, don't worry about it, you know. And we'd come back to the office and we'd lay the material on the table, and I'd draw out the line and, you know, say, can you cut it for me? Yeah. And they'd cut it, and they say, I said, well, that's cutting. And they go, that's cutting, you know. It was like a whole awakening. We made the first Christmas stocking, and of course they have no experience of Christmas. They have no conception of what it is. And one of my friends walked in, and she looked at the stocking and she said, oh, you can't sell that. And the look of triumph on the faces of my staff, like, I told you so, this is really bad. She says, no, she said, can't sell this when I need 20. And their faces changed. Yeah. And so that day we made a red one. The next morning we made a green one, and I had actually my first rebellion. The staff actually said, you know, we can't do this, we're very embarrassed. And I said, what are you talking about? And they said, well, it's bad enough that you would walk outside with a red sock on, Now you're going to put a green sock on. That would be more than Cambodians
can take.
Yeah. Now they're the designers.
Yeah.
Now they understand, and it's been very exciting.
Well, Jane, I have to, unfortunately, I have to bring the show to a close, but I am very reassured by this confidence. So, you know, I'm going to ask you to make my bow tie in Cambodian silk.
You're on.
And, you know, this is something that will be one of my proudest days, to wear something that is made in Cambodian silk, customized to fit a Western market. Yeah. And that's something, a test that Cambodia, we can do it. You know, give it the right time, the right support, the right motivation. Yeah. It's a can-do attitude. Yeah. And your story, Tabitha's story, is a story of can-do. Yeah. It's a story of hope. It's a story of pride. It's not a story of pity. It's a story of pride that we, you know, are coming from a culture that has made much greater thing than silk. Yeah. And yes, we have gone through difficult years due to Cold War and everything. Nothing we can do about it. But the thing that we can do about it, we're doing it. Yeah. And you are such a good example. So I want to say thank you for coming today to share that experience to the rest.
Well, thank you for having me, and I would invite everyone in Cambodia, do come into the shop, see what you can do, take great pride in Cambodian products. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming to the end of the show, and once again, I just want to say that this is another story of you know, how we are able to help with the right training, with the right attitude, with the right approach. We can really help our Cambodian women, disadvantaged women, you know, people with potential skill, how we can harness them and help them take to the next step, which is earning a livelihood on their own with respect, and at the same time, you know, helping build the microeconomy of this country, which I think is fundamental for the growth and the sustainability of our economy. Not just the big one, but we need all the small ones to be able to transact. And thanks to the market that is out there, and thanks to technical assistance that many of NGO are coming to this country, we can see that, yes, you know, poverty can be reduced through trade. So on that note, I want to say thank you for watching our show, and we see each other next week. Good night.